The first slide up here, we want to remind you of a couple of administrative notes that we're being recorded as we're presenting. And this is so that later you will be able to go back, follow the link to the recording, and then refollow this entire presentation. Another thing is we're going to run through the slide deck. We're going to do the presentation of the facts regarding the OASIS offering, and at the end, we're going to hold questioning until the end, and then we're going to, during that Q&A, we will read back and forth the questions that I have gathered from your chat on the side. If for whatever reason you don't have the chat window open, there is a box on the right-hand side of your screen. It's in red. It's got 3 dots in it. You just use that to open the window. Chat is the second option down on your little blue menu there, and you can toggle that on and off with that little red box on the side of the chat window. So if you hit the red box, that chat window will go away, and the slide presentation will become full screen. And then you can open the chat if you need to log a question in. It's already set that the question, you can direct it straight to us, your question, or you can see down at the bottom that you can address it to everyone. Finally, you can download the presentation by clicking the link under File, and that is so that you can get the slide deck itself. And that is so you can follow just in case you want a copy just for your own personal review. All right, thanks. So the purposes, we're going to start right off. We want to talk about why going through an entire webinar in order to cover the OASIS offering. And the reasons are simple. It's because the response preparation for this, like some of the other offerings that are available today, they can be complex. The self-scoring systems are becoming more prevalent, but they're still relatively new. Companies don't know how to address the new scoring systems and how to maximize those scores. It's not just a matter of compliance. It's a matter of putting all of your cards on the table, getting your best foot forward, and getting the highest scores. Proposal development also has many unknowns. In other words, what goes into a complete and compelling submission package. The other reason is because GDI Consulting has a firm history in this type of proposal submission, particularly recently in the self-scoring oriented offerings. So we're going to demonstrate for you today some of the ins and outs of it, and why we have kind of developed some of our own tools to help you utilize, maximize, and ultimately win offerings that employ the self-scoring protocols. GDI has written many of them, best-in-class proposals. You can see on the list there, there's 8 wins in the original OASIS offering, 4 wins on HCATS, and 6 wins on Alliant. Those all utilized these tabular and empirical scoring systems in addition to the subsequent review that goes into your submission itself. GDI's ample experience with the challenges that companies face getting the right people together, getting a team oriented, and then assigned in order to go out and claim and collect the appropriate information for these scoring type offerings. And our scoring matrix, which we've constructed ourselves, will help you to gauge your win probability and maximize your scores. So the goals today, as you're going through the seminar, to keep in mind are to understand the problem, that's becomes familiar with scoring systems, to evaluate the requirements for this particular offering, the OASIS 8A, to understand the issues involved with maximizing the score, the things that you could overlook or the things that might go wrong, and understand the compliance barrier, both the reasons and some of the stumbling blocks that can exist on during the offering and in response to the RFQ or the RFP. Understanding the solution, you want to get a clear picture of the self-scoring system, both the one that is presented as a criteria for acceptance and ultimately award for this, and also our own that helps you to evaluate what your score is and whether or not you've gotten the maximum that you can. What you need as far as minimum requirements, what can go wrong in developing the proposal itself, and then finally some of the points to follow to develop a winning proposal, not just the scoring, but some of the processes that are involved. The outline of the webinar, we're going to go through, and these are the core sections that we've got here. There are just a few slides each, but they help you to pinpoint the information we're getting across. One is about the OASIS SubPools, this general information. The available pools is number 2. Core disciplines and volume structure of the response as it's to be constructed. Minimum requirements in order to be eligible. OASIS specific scoring system. Every one of these scoring systems is weighted and evaluated differently. So we want to talk about OASIS particularly. What can go wrong? The win strategy, where to focus most of your attention, where to get to be the most efficient and effective, and how to maximize your score. Once you've got the workings of the scoring table, how are you going to take that and apply it to what your own company has to offer? And then finally, we'll end with that Q&A. So things that have been presented, sent over to me in the chat window, I'll be able to log, and Ab will be able to address those. He's going to give you the bulk of the technical content, and then he'll answer the questions, the ones that I gather, and feed over to him during the Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Charles. My name is Ab Vand. I head the Capture and Proposal Development Department at GDI Consulting, and I'm going to go through the material. We have a lot to cover, so I'll try to go fast, but we'll spend enough time on the Q&A. Even if you have to drop out, that's fine. We'll be sending the responses to the questions, all the Q&A, to all the participants. We have your emails, so if you have other engagements at the end and you have to drop out, that's fine. Okay, the OASIS 8A SubPools is a special OASIS RFP in that special on-ramp, in that it is covering all the pools, not just one pool, because the other times when they put a on-ramp is say for pool 1 or pool 2 or pool 3. But this time you have the chance to actually participate in all pools except one. There are 7 pools and you can participate in 6 of them, and I'll cover that. So I mean, I wanted to emphasize that this is a major opportunity for all 8A companies. You have 2 advantages over all others. First, you have a chance of going after multiple pools if you can, because the other companies are not going to get that chance going after this, multiple pools at the same time. If somebody wants to go after pool 3, they have to wait a few months. Pool 2 probably next year. Pool 1 probably in 2 years. So you have a good chance here. And again, also, competition is much less than the usual pool on-ramps. Say, for example, on pool 1, right now you would be competing against 8As only, but if you wanted to participate on a usual on-ramp for pool 1, you would have a lot more competition. So these are 2 reasons that this OASIS 8A SubPools on-ramp is very important, and I suggest everybody who has the minimum requirements to take advantage and even go after multiple pools if they can. And I'll explain that later on. So just to start and go very quickly over the general information about this OASIS RFP, is by GSA. It's supposed to be dropping this Friday, February 8th, and it probably will have 45 days. They'll give us 45 days, and usually there's at least 1 or 2 weeks of extension at the end, but we should go for that 45 days. This is the new solicitation number. They've changed the FBO website link for the 8A subpool. So it's not on the same when they publish the full RFP. It's not going to be on the same OASIS page. It has a separate page, and this is the RFP number. So make sure that you take note of that if you're following up on the FBO website. Contract period is going to last until December 19th of 2024, but the period of performance of the task orders can run all the way up to 2029. With regards to, this is a GWAC, obviously, multiple award. They're going to award 80 companies in 6 different pools. Pools 1 and 3 will have the highest number of awardees, but overall there are going to be 80 awards of 8A companies. The maximum contract ceiling value, that's not known yet. I mean with regards to 8A companies specifically. Otherwise, the information about OASIS is already available on the the budget that they're going to go for it. But they haven't said anything about, or at least I don't know on 8A budgets that they have thought about. Set aside, as mentioned, is only 8A firms on this one. And the size standard is based on each pool. So it's going to be different for each pool, and we're going to cover that now. Pool 1, you need to be under 15 million under the NAAQS code of 541330. So that's for subpool 1. For pool 2, 20.5 for 541219. So your income should be less than this under that NAAQS code. For subpool 3, is 38.5 million under 541330 exception A. Subpool 4, there's no revenue limitation. Just your employees need to be less than 1,000 under the NAAQS code of 541715. Pool 5B, Pool 5A, they're not going to bid on this 8A on-ramp, so we haven't covered it. 5B, you need to have less than 1,250 employees under NAAQS code 541715, exception C. And lastly, Pool 6, 1,500 employees, less than 1,500 employees under NAAQS 541715, exception A. Okay, now let's go into Pool 1 very quickly. It's essentially management, and I'll read very quickly over it so you know what Pool 1 is. Sorry for those who already know it. I just wanted to make this a quick review. Engineering services, geophysical survey and mapping services, survey and mapping, testing laboratories, administrative management, general management consulting. Then it goes to human resource consulting services, marketing consulting services, process physical distribution, logistics consulting services, other management, environmental consulting, other scientific and technical, advertising agencies, yes, that comes here too, public relations agencies, media buying, media representatives, and outdoor advertising. All of these go into Pool 1, and we have direct mail advertising, advertising material distribution services, other services are related to advertising, marketing research, and all other professional, scientific, and technical services, which covers a lot. All of this comes under Pool 1. So if your contracts lie anywhere here, you are eligible, and we'll go into the requirements for that later on. But that's Pool 1. Pool 2 is essentially financial systems. So it's certified public accountants, tax preparation services, payroll services, other accounting services, and research and development in social sciences and humanities. That's Pool 2. Pool 3 are 3 NAAQS code exception A, B, and C for 541330, which is engineering for military and aerospace equipment and military weapons, engineering for contracts and subcontracts for engineering services, and engineering for marine engineering and naval architecture. So that's Pool 3. A lot of companies fall under that. Pool 4, research and development in biotechnology and research and development in physical engineering and life sciences. So that's Pool 4. Pool 5A, not offered on this on-ramp. Pool 5B is 541712 exception C, which is research and development in space vehicles and guided missiles. So if you're in that business, that's where you should go for. And finally, Pool 6, exception A for 541712, research and development in aircraft. So these are the different pools. You will be, once the RFP comes out, they will say exactly how, but you will be able to participate in multiple pools because your contracts might cover them, and I will explain how. In terms of the functional areas, OASIS calls them core disciplines. There are 6 of them, so your contracts should cover at least 3 of these. So each contract that you submit for this project as past performance and as past experience, they need to cover at least 3 of these: program management, management consulting, scientific services, engineering services, logistics services, and financial services. Now, I want to emphasize the fact that this engineering services does not include IT. And when I say IT, I mean software engineering. You might have done software engineering, but it might be part of the project, but we can't, for example, if the main job of the project was to write a software, you can't cover that under engineering services. Okay, now the volume structure, and this has 6 volumes, this proposal. The volume 1 is general, which is essentially all the administrative documents that we have to put in, plus the minimum pool requirements. I will get to that, what it is. So all of those documents go here. Just to give you an idea, there are approximately 70 to 75 documents that you have to provide for this proposal. Now, based on your qualifications, on your company qualifications, this might be less. You might not have some, for example, ISO or other certifications. So the number of documents you provide will be less, but it will be somewhere around 50. So a lot of documents that they have to go in the right place with the right naming conventions, and we'll go to that later. So volume 1 has those documents. Volume 2 is responsibility, which is essentially your financial documents and your reps and certs, section K of the RFP. Now, volume 3 and 4 are the most important ones. Volume 3 are all the relevant experiences that you have. They call them primary and secondary. I'll explain them. But essentially, all the scoring you're going to get for your experience goes here. The documentation, all of it goes here. Volume 4 is the past performance. So all the CPARs or PPQs and everything goes here. Volume 5, systems, certifications, and clearances. These are about your company. So, for example, if you have a certified purchasing system in place, or if you have ISO certifications or facility clearance, for all of those you get a score, and the documentation to prove it all go into here, volume 5. And finally, volume 6 is cost price, which is just two documents. One is a Excel sheet that you fill out, and the second one is justification for that if need be, usually not needed. So that Excel sheet, essentially, you need to give the cost for direct cost plus all the overhead that you put on top of it for a number of different labor categories, which is a very simple system, because they're not going to score you on this. This is just in case in the future they're going to give you contracts that are time and material and that sort of thing, so they have to know the maximum prices that you will have. So the prices you give here on volume 6 are for special task orders once you get the contract, and will set the target highest price that you can give. Okay, now let's go into the minimum requirements of what you have. First, there is something called minimum requirements for the entire contract. In other words, if you don't have these minimum requirements, you will be disqualified. So first of all, you need to be small business and obviously 8A under the specific NAICS code for the pool that you're going to participate, which we covered. So under each of those pools, you need to be small based on the requirements of that pool, which were, as we saw, some of them were number of personnel and some of them were your revenue. You also must have an acceptable accounting system. This is a requirement. If you don't have it, you cannot participate in this bid. Now, that's not something very hard to come by. It doesn't mean that it needs to have been approved by DCMA or DCAA. It means that it is ready to be audited. In other words, you need to have an accounting system that can be audited and be on par with their requirements, which usually most companies who have done at least 5 or 6 projects with the government have that already. Now, you have, for each pool that you want to participate in, you need to provide 2 contracts with the following requirements. Only 2, but you have to have those 2 in place. First of all, they need to be federal contracts. So if you don't have any federal contracts with these requirements, then if GSA is going to allow partnering, which I will cover later on, then you can bring in a partner who does have those 2 contracts, or even 2 partners, each having 1 contract. But you have to have this, otherwise your proposal will be disqualified. Now, the 2 contracts, as I said, must be federal. You need to be prime on them, or your subs, your partners need to be prime on those. You can't be sub. Must have been performed within the last 5 years, or it might be an ongoing project, that's fine, but you need to have at least 1 year of, for the period of performance. So you can't use a project that you got 2 months ago. That's not allowed. It needs to have at least 1 year of performance, or if it's less and you have a CPAR, that's fine. They accept that. The NAICS code, the NAICS code or the PSC for the contract must correspond to the allowed NAICS and PSCs for that pool. So that's another thing that you need to make sure you have. So the NAICS that comes on fpds.gov must be correct. Of course, there is a form that you can fill out and send it to the contracting officer, and if he's allowing a change, then you can change the NAICS or the PSC, and that's acceptable. But essentially, you have to prove that you do have 2 contracts in the proper NAICS code of that pool. And finally, the CPARs or the PPQ, that is, if you don't have a CPARs, you must fill a PPQ. These 2 must have, either of them must have a minimum of satisfactory rating for performance. So this is a must. These are the minimum, they're called minimum pool requirements. If you don't have these, they'll just put away your proposal. So that's the first requirement. Now, we go to the second section. Now, for the minimum pool requirements, I forgot to say, you don't get any score for this. It's just a pass or fail. If you pass this, then they're going to look at the next section, which is the primary relevant experience projects that you'll get a score for. In other words, the contracts you've performed. You need 5. You can give less, but there is no reason to do that because you're going to lose, because every company is going to give at least 5 and you get more score. So you need 5 contracts with the following requirements. They can be federal or commercial contracts. So here you can use commercial contracts. But you must be prime on them, whether you are on the federal one or you've done a project for Apple, for IBM, for whoever. You need to be prime on it. Now, they don't accept, unless they change that, they don't accept a project, a federal contract that you were a sub to a prime. That's not acceptable. In other words, say you were a sub to General Dynamics on a specific government contract. Then you're considered a sub, and that's not acceptable. So you need to be prime either on the federal, on the commercial side, which is totally commercial, not a prime of a federal contract. Okay, the same requirement with regards to years stands here. So the contracts that you can provide must have been performed during the past 5 years, with at least, or if they're ongoing, with at least 1 year of period of performance. If the contract was completed and had a POP less than a year, and there is a CPARS, that's fine. But that's essentially it. So as I said, you can't use a project that was awarded in most of 2018 and ongoing. The annual value of the contracts you bring on the table, of the 5, all of them must be above $150,000. So you can't have a contract that is less than $150,000. Now look at the idea that I'm talking about. I'm saying annual. So this annual means that if, for example, a contract was done for $100,000 and it took 6 months and it's finished, and you have a CPARS, its annual value is $200,000 because it was for 6 months. So you multiply by 2, or you actually multiply by 6 and then divide it by 6, that's per month, and then multiply it by 12 to get a year. So if it's less than 150,000, but in less than 12 months, you have to do that calculation, and that's acceptable. But the other way also works. Say you had a project for $300,000, but it took 3 years. When you want to calculate the annual value for that, that's 100,000. So you can't use that project. So the important word is this annual value, that it has to be over 150,000. But there's also another requirement with regards to the annual value. The average annual value of the 5 contracts must be over $750,000. In other words, it is true that you can use $100,000 or $250,000 contracts, but if you want to get the average of all the 5 to be around 750,000, then you would need a few contracts that are over 1 million or 2 million, so that the average of the 5 would be $750,000. So that's something that we should take into account. Okay, now the other requirement is also the CPARS or PPQ, as I said, must be above satisfactory rating. But note that if it's not good or excellent, your chances of winning this contract are very low. So you need to pick contracts that are at the minimum on the good side, and better to be on the excellent or exceptional, as they call it, side. So that's something to take into consideration. Now, these were called the primary relevant experience projects, and most of the score for the experience comes to here. Now, there's something called secondary relevant experience projects. You get some score for this, but the score is not very high. So if you don't have these, don't worry. I don't mean that. I mean, it's not a no-go decision on this, but I will explain what it is. If you have multiple award IDIQs or multiple award BPAs, if you have more than 2 of them, and each of them have at least 2 task orders or calls under them, you get a score. So if you have between 2 to 4 multiple award IDIQs or BPAs, you get a score. If you have between 5 to 9, you get more score. And if you have above 10 multiple award IDIQs or BPAs, and each of them, remember, need to have at least 2 task orders. If you have that, you get some score, but the score is not high. We'll see how high it is. So for these, the only thing that you need to take care of is that they need to have been performed during the past 5 years with the same thing, at least 1 year of performance and all of that. Okay, now there's also another thing called mission space. In other words, your agency experience with which agencies you worked with. You get some score for that too. They've divided the agencies into 5 categories. They call them protection and defense, DOD, DHS, DOJ, Department of State, CIA, FBI, all lie in this. So you have to prove that you did a project for these. Just one project is enough. So if you did 5 projects, say all of them were in for the DOD, I mean Navy, Air Force, whatever, it doesn't matter. You get the same score. So just one project for each of these, you will get a little bit of a score. So first one is protection and defense. Second one is quality of life, Department of Education, Health and Human Resources, VA, USAID, HUD, NASA, and Peace Corps. Third one is commerce, Department of Commerce, Treasury, Department of Transportation, Labor, SBA, SSA, GSA, Federal Reserves, and Security and Exchange. Fourth one is natural resources, Department of Agriculture, Interior, Energy, EPA, and Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And anything that doesn't lie in these goes into 5. So if you have even one contract in any of these, you get the score. Okay. Now let's talk what self-scoring system is. I'll cover this very quickly and go into the specificities of OASIS. But essentially, a self-scoring system, or as they call them, best in class, is that you, based on the criteria that the government gives and the scoring system that they give, you fill out a self-scoring spreadsheet, and then you substantiate your claims. In other words, you provide documentation to show that the way that you have given yourself those scores is justifiable, is correct. That's what you do, and then you send your proposal. It seems easy, but it's not that easy. Then the government starts to first remove anything that is non-compliant as far as the way you have prepared the proposal. Then they rank the proposal based on the score. Then they check the substantiations to make sure that the scores that you have claimed are correct. And then they pick the top 80 companies. Here we're talking about 8As, top 80 8A companies based on each pool award limitations. For example, as I said, pool 1 and 3 have the highest number of awardees. So depending on which pool you have presented your proposal for, they'll check and pick you. Now, here's the way that the scoring system works. The OASIS proposal, when you self-score yourself, the maximum you can get is 10,000. Now, the way it's split is the primary experience that we mentioned, 5 contracts that you have to give, you'll get, the maximum you can get is 3,650. Secondary experience, which I said is not very important, you only get 350. So for those multiple awards, IDIQs or BPAs or agency experience, all of that, if you have the maximum, you get 350. Now look at this, past performance. For 5 contracts, you get 4,000. That's the most important factor because you just provide 5 CPARs, and if they are excellent projects, you've got exceptional rating on them, you get the 4,000. So that's the driving factor for winning, past performance, picking projects that will give you this and then maximizing it using these primary experience scores. And you get 2,000 score for the systems, certs, and clearances. So if your company has, say, top secret facility clearance, has different ISOs and a number of other capabilities, the maximum you can get is 2,000. Now, let me explain one point with regards to partnering. The 8A RFP has not dropped. It's going to drop hopefully this Friday. But if we assume that they're going to use the same criteria as before with regards to partnering.
Let me interrupt you for just a second, Eb. There was a question about that, and I checked on FedBizOps, and they had an update just published today that says now they're anticipating around the 21st.
Oh, okay. So we have to wait until the 21st. Good. Thank you so much for that. Yep. Okay, so now the idea is this. If they allow us to partner, in other words, if you are allowed to partner, and they did allow that, for example, in November, last November, when we did Pool 1 for companies, you are allowed to bring in partners, subcontractors, in other words, who would provide you primary experience, who could provide you secondary experience scores, and who could provide you past performance scores. So all of this score, except this 2000, can come from your partners. So if on this one, on the 21st now, when they issue the RFP, if they do allow partnering, this is what is expected. So in other words, this is 8,000 points. Out of the 10,000 points, you can get all of it from your partners. Obviously, most companies do have their own contracts, but I'm giving the extreme case that you don't have any contracts at all, but your partners have all the contracts. That's acceptable, except for the systems, certs, and clearances. That needs to come from you. So that's the division between you and your partners. 8,000 points can come from the partners, and 2,000 points must come from you. Okay, let's go and look at the previous scores. This is the previous scores for OASIS in 2013 when it was bidded initially. Now, this just gives you an idea about the numbers, but I want to say that you should not consider this as very substantial because, as I said, originally when they issued this RFP, partnering was not allowed. So these companies that won the Pool 1 and the lowest score that got an award was 59.25, they all relied on their own score, on their own past performance. But this time, last November, when they bidded, they had an on-ramp for Pool 1, they did allow partnering. Obviously, with partnering, that number is going to go higher. So I would assume that on all of these, if GSA continues to allow partnering, all these numbers will increase. So these should not be considered as the minimum. For example, for Pool 1, 6,500 during November was the minimum, at least from our assumptions, and even higher than that to get a seat on that contract. So because of the partnering issue, these numbers will increase in terms of, giving you an idea of the minimum score that you should have. Okay, now, what can go wrong when you prepare your proposal? These are from our experience working on OASIS on a number of times, both the original one, the on-ramps, working on HCATs, working on Alliant, and a number of other self-scoring type proposals. Compliance, as I have mentioned, is very important. I'll show you a graph later on the number of companies that have been disqualified. This is where the government will use, the best way the government can actually minimize their workload, because they're going to get hundreds of proposals. So the first thing they're going to look for is compliance. And if you're not compliant, they'll put aside your proposal, even though you might have the best proposals or best contracts in the world. So compliance is very important. Second point that might go wrong is misunderstanding the requirements. Unlike the standard RFPs where you have to write, a number of volumes, the management volume, technical volume, past performance. Unfortunately, this best-in-class scoring systems are not like that. You have to solve about 200 equations to see if this particular contract is compliant, is not, is better than the other. So a lot of equations you have to resolve in your head to actually do that. And if you misunderstand the requirements and you put in a contract that is not compliant, you're going to lose that, and your score will drop and you will lose. So that's very important, understanding the exact requirements of the RFP. Now, the other thing that might go wrong is getting, sometimes you need to get signatures from the COs. For example, if your contracts don't have CPARs or they're commercial ones, then you have to fill a special past performance questionnaire. The CO or the client needs to sign it and then send it back to you, not to the government, to you, and you have to put it into the proposal documents and submit. Now, if you leave that to the last days, or the COs are slow or whatever, and you don't get that past performance back, that entire contract will be useless. You won't get the score for it, and you'll not get the contract. Not maximizing your score, including proper partnering. That is very important. We have seen many companies who did not maximize their score, whereas they really could. First of all, they didn't pick the right contracts. Say they have 10 contracts and they have to pick 5 of them. They didn't pick the right ones because they thought, for example, that just having the highest value contract will give them the highest score. That's not the case. And then also not taking advantage of the partnering issue, because once you know where you're lacking, in which areas you're lacking, best thing is to find partners who can actually help you on that. And then not substantiating your score properly, because as I said, you have to first say, hey, I deserve this score, and then you have to substantiate it. In other words, you have to provide documents in the proper way to substantiate and justify the fact that you have that score. If you don't do that properly, you're not going to get that score, even though you really deserve it. So substantiation, in other words, preparing the documentation for the score, is very important. And finally, not submitting the proposal correctly. Sometimes we've seen companies have made mistakes in the way that they should upload the contract. And recently, GSA is working through Google Drive systems. So you have to upload your system to Google Drive. So that's something that you need to take care of, and be sure to make sure that the government receives it. Okay, now let's look at that non-compliance history. We didn't have the numbers for OASIS, but we did have the numbers for HCATS, which is on the training side of these RFPs, and it's one of those GSA multiple award GWACs, very large billion-dollar project. Now, if you look at this dark blue are all those companies that were disqualified for being non-compliant. So if you can look at this, nearly 75%, a little bit less, of the companies that participated in the original 2016 HCATS bid were disqualified for being non-compliant. And you would think that large businesses would do better. Well, they do a little bit, but nearly 50% here were found to be non-compliant. Unfortunately, even though, we ourselves do have a number of proposal managers with over 20, 25 years of experience, but since our people are experienced with, the standard way of writing proposals, preparing the documentation for these self-score is completely different. So we've learned that, just being a very good proposal manager does not help you. And you need a lot of systems in place to actually be able to provide a compliant proposal including we always use at least 3 people on each proposal, because there are so many factors involved that even if you're the best in the world, you're prone to make mistakes. So you need multiple eyes in addition to the amount of work that needs to be done, but you still need multiple eyes to actually check the work. So this gives an idea of the importance of compliance for these best-in-class proposals. Okay, what should your win strategy be? As you saw, 4,000 points goes directly for past performance. So past performance is king. When you're picking those 5 contracts, the first thing that you should think of is not their value, nothing like that. Which 5 you have the highest score in past performance. Then the win strategy, maximizing your score. Now, to maximize your score, you need to know which contracts to use. We have a self-scoring matrix I'll show you in a minute that helps us understand out of, say, 10, 8, or however number of contracts our client has, which one will, at the end, give us the highest score. So that helps us a lot. And you need to do that to be able to maximize your score. And there are also other issues that are involved in maximizing your score. For example, I'll get to that, like that friendly COs to maximize. I'll explain what that is. Now, make full use of partnering and multiple partners, as I mentioned. If GSA is going to allow partnering on this one as well, on this on-ramp, you should use maximum use of it. And don't go for just one partner. There's no limit to it. So if you have a network and you can bring, say, each partner brings along 1 contract, that's fine. You can have 5 partners all bringing each 1 contract. That's allowed. So, I mean, use this to the maximum to maximize your score. And then maximizing the use of your commercial projects. You might not have those 5 projects. That our self-scoring matrix does cover commercial projects too, because sometimes you would think that always using a federal contract would be better, but it's not the case. Let me give you an example. There are a number of agencies that don't give better than good or sometimes even better than satisfactory rating on past performances, even though you've done very well, but that's just the way they work. So even though that would be, the best project that you've done, but essentially you're not going to get the number for it for the past performance. But you might have done commercial projects with which you can get excellent, exceptional past performance from the clients that you've done it for. So you should go for that. So maximizing the use of your commercial projects is important. And of course, you have to weigh them because there are different factors involved that factors such as how many, for example, contracts were involved, what is the value of the contract, whether it was CONUS or OCONUS, whether it was cost reimbursable or not, a number of factors. So all of these must be weighed in, and then you decide which 5 to pick. And that's why I've said use friendly COs to maximize. Sometimes it's you can talk to a CO, and there, for example, you have a contract that is very strong. It just doesn't have the proper NACS code or PSC code. And you talk to the CO, and they're agreeable on changing the NACS, and they're usually more agreeable on changing the PSC instead of the NACS. The good thing about this changing is that it is not going to affect the FPDS website or the databases. I mean, the contracting officer doesn't have to do any of that. He just signs. As far as GSA is concerned, that NACS code or that PSC code was changed only for this OASIS bid. Later on, it's the same as before. So, there are other factors that COs can help from signing PPQs all the way to putting information, getting letters from them that, for example, the statement of work, you've done something that you can get a score for, but the statement of work doesn't cover that. You can get a letter from the CO somehow to cover that. So that is something to maximize with. And finally, as I said, check compliance, think compliance, and eat compliance. That should be part of your win strategy. Okay, now let's see how you can actually maximize your score. As I said, we have a self-scoring system, matrix that does allow you to gauge your chances of winning, your score, how to maximize it, where to bring in your partners, and all of that. So next, I want to show you that, and I'm going to share my screen with you. 1 minute, please, so I can do that. Okay. I hope you're seeing that. Okay, this is the self-scoring system, a self-scoring matrix that we have. This was used on a previous project for Pool 1 last November. These are fictitious numbers here. But essentially what this does, first of all, it tells me each of these rows is one contract. And we fill out this for you when we work on this matrix. Each of these rows, as I said, is a contract. This matrix tells me whether I can use it as one of the 2 pool qualification contracts. Remember, you had to have 2 pool qualification contracts. Or if I can use it as one of those 5 contracts that I get my main score for and my past performance score for. So the way it works is that, first of all, here, the NACS or PSC code is written. This one is a commercial one, so it doesn't have that. So that orange says that that's the reason that this is not a pool qualification, because it doesn't have the proper NACS code. So I can't use this project because this is red. It shows me that I can't use this as a pool qualification. The one below it is green, so I can use it because it has the proper NACS code and it has the other requirements that the government is looking for. And if you look at the rest, all of them tell me whether each of them can be used as a pool qualification. This one can be, and all these can be used. And the red ones can't be used. For the 5 projects, this is the column. This column, it shows me the ones that are green, show me that they're good to go, I can use them. The red ones are not. For example, why is this red? Here you'll see this is which disciplines. If you remember, I said that you need to have minimum 3 core disciplines. This one, only after we checked the statement of work, we realized that it only has 2 core disciplines. It covers only 2. So it doesn't have the minimum 3. So we put the red. We know that we can't use this project for the experience. But this one, for example, does have that. Now, there are other times that you might not use, for example, this one. It's a Navy project, for example, and you can use it as a pool qualification because it has the proper PSC. The NAICS code is not correct, but the PSC is correct. R499 is acceptable on that pool. So it can be used as a pool qualification. But actually, there's a mistake. This can't be used as a pool qualification either. I'll say why. The reason it is red here under this relevant experience is that it started on 15th of September 2018. So it doesn't have that 1 year of performance. Since it doesn't have that 1 year of performance, it can neither be used as relevant experience nor as a pool qualification. So even though it does have the proper NAICS code and the value is, the annual value is 3,600,000, that's fine, but because it doesn't have that 1 year, so I can't use that. Now, after we fill out all this fields, and this, I'll make it a little bit smaller so you can see it more expanded, this is a very widespread Excel, and we put all the information we get from you, from your statements of work, the contract statement of work, a Word document, all of that. We check fpds.gov, and we fill out this spreadsheet, and then we fill it up, and then this is automatically calculated. This tells me, this total score tells me what this contract is going to give me as a maximum. For example, and I have sorted this based on the total score. So I know that contract number 7, although it's a commercial one, but at the end it's going to give me 1375. The next one, for example, will give me 1325. It's a CMS contract. It's a federal contract. Then number 8 will give me 1175, which is again a commercial. So that's how as I explained, after these scores are calculated in this matrix, I can pick the best 5 with the highest score, and this can't be used as a pool qualification, but it can be used as a relevant experience project. So I'm going to use it. So at the end, this form gives you a number here. So based on those 5 contracts, the highest numbers, which are per the requirements, my score would be 6,700. Or your score might be low, and you'll see that, for example, the 5th contract or the 2 of the lowest ones, you need to swap with the partners in order to make sure that your score will get higher. So that way you know which contracts you should bring in from the partner, what capabilities they should have. And usually what we do, we put in the partners' contracts here on this table as well. And that way we can calculate, using different partners' projects, what the maximum score would be. So this helps us a lot, both on realizing whether we have the minimum requirements, and also knowing where we can actually bring in the partners to maximize our score. Once we get to know which 5 contracts we're going to work on, we have another preparation checklist. This checklist is to actually prepare the documents. So once the 5 contracts are picked, then we start preparing the documents, putting them together. The naming convention is very important. This is the naming convention. This form automatically gives us the correct naming. So say your name of the company is, for example, ABC company, ABC Solutions LLC. You need to put that in the name of all the documents you give to GSA. You can, for example, say you put the name as ABC. I'm here putting ABC Sol. As soon as I put this in and hit return, all these names change, and I know exactly what each of these documents should be named. So this helps me in terms of review and quality control to make sure that the name of all the documents, and there are, as I said, about 70 to 75 documents. Let me make this smaller so you can see a long list of documents. These are all the documents that you have to have with the naming convention. So a long list of documents that we need to prepare and put on the volumes that we have. Now, this checklist also helps us in terms of the review. We prepare, we'll do first round of review, second round of review, anything that needs signatures, and then finalize. And on each round, we put in all the notes here, telling what needs to be done, if something needs to be corrected. So this way, we make sure that compliance is built into the system, and we make sure that multiple people also check these. Now, if you're going to do it in-house, you should for sure create a system like this or anything you think of that actually makes sure that compliance is built into your system. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Okay, so now the services that we can provide you, we provide free consultation. So just make an appointment with our VP of Business Development, Maroon Freedy. His email is here on this slide. And we can discuss, answer any questions that you might have. Apart from that, we do have two systems. One, full proposal development, in which we first assess your scoring and how we can optimize it. And then we go into preparation of the forms, all the assembly, cradle to grave, and then multiple compliance checks, as I discussed. Or we can do reviewing and auditing. In other words, you do the work and we review and audit it for you. My suggestion for those companies who've not done this before, either on OASIS or on other similar types, is not to do this reviewing type, because doing the proposal by themselves is prone to make mistakes. And we can all, of course, once we do the compliance checks, we can pick many of them, but we can't do the optimization, as I said, as far as picking the right projects or not. What we can do, you will give us, for example, 5 contracts here. We can optimize them as much as we can, but actually picking the best projects for you and working with you is something else. But that's my suggestion. Anyways, these are the two services that we provide, and we can help you on that. Here is Maroon's email. So if you want to email him or call him and make an appointment, and we can discuss on a one-to-one basis your needs, your concerns, I would be happy to work with you on that. By that, we are now done with explanations, and we can go into the Q&A. And as I said, the text of the Q&A will be sent to all of you. So if you have to drop out and you have other engagements, we'll send that to you. And the webinar itself also is recorded, will be sent to you later on. Okay, Charles, I'm ready.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So we want to run down. I tried to group some of these questions together so that we can maybe be as efficient as possible to tackle some of the similars, mostly teaming-oriented ones. But we'll get some of the easier ones out of the way here. Let's see. If we don't have experience in the areas listed on slide 14, are we not eligible? And those are your primary areas. Let me get to slide 14 while we're talking. Okay, so your core disciplines. If you don't have core disciplines listed, they are a PR firm, an advertising firm, and they're saying if you don't have experience in those areas, are they still eligible?
Okay, a PR, it doesn't mean when you have a PR project, for example, it says program management. Program management, you can easily cover under a PR because you actually managed that project. For example, you had a PR project for the government and you pursued some sort of a PR for them. You actually did some management of that. You can always use proper wording in the statement of work to prove that you actually did program management. So that's something, I wouldn't say 100%, but usually program management at least is usually something that you can actually get from the statement of work and substantiate. Then apart from that, from the statement of work, we have to see how we can prove that you actually did other work such as management consulting, and usually logistic services, sometimes it might cover. So we have to look at your statement of work and come up with the minimum 3. But you need at least 3 out of those 6. If you don't have those, then you're not eligible for those 5 contracts. Remember that, as I said, if you can partner with companies and bring other companies in, you can use all 5 contracts from them. Over.
Okay. The total number for Pool 1, there's a question, how many companies will be selected specifically in Pool 1?
Okay. I have a list. Let me get to it, and I'll answer that. Sorry, I just closed it. Go to the next list, and I will next question. I'll find that and get back to you.
Okay. We have a definition question here. How does relevant experience in Volume 3 differ from Volume 4 past performance?
Okay, understood. Well, relevant experience means that, for example, whether these are the factors that are involved. What was the value of the contract? Did it cover 3 of those core disciplines, 4, 5, or all 6? And you get score for this. Was it done OCONUS or CODIS? Was it, for example, did you have 3 or more subcontractors? For all of these that I mentioned, you get score for them. This is called relevant experience. Now, for past performance, it means how well you performed that project. And it's either a CPARS that you have to get from the government, or a PPQ, past performance questionnaire, that the government will fill out, sign, and send it back to you. So it says how well you did. You did, for example, satisfactory, exceptional, what? That's the difference. And coming back to that previous question, here are the numbers. Subpool 1, 30 awards. Subpool 2, 8 awards. Subpool 3, 20 awards. Subpool 4, 5B, and 6, each of them 8 awards. So essentially, Subpool 1 is the largest, 30 awards. Next, after that is Subpool 3, 20 awards, and all the other pools, you get 8 awards each.
Okay. Next, we have basically 3 questions about joint ventures. It says if you are in a SBA joint venture, can the joint venture count as 8A, and will the joint venture's partners contracts then count? So this means the combined joint venture.
Right. As far as I know, the joint venture must be approved by GSA as 8A. I mean, you have to provide the approval.
Okay.
But I'm not an expert on this, but I know that I've heard that GSA must approve the joint venture. Then once the joint venture is approved, GSA approved 8A, then all the members can use their past performance or past experience projects.
Okay. Now, also, we're talking about teaming agreements. There are several questions saying, if you are at 8A, do your partners need to be 8A? Okay.
As I said, since the RFP has dropped, we don't know yet. Let me give you some examples, and there are 3 scenarios involved. Originally, when the OASIS was bidded, they didn't allow any partnering. Then, in the recent on-ramps, they did allow partnering, but for each pool, the partner, in other words, the subcontractor, needed to be small under that pool. So, for example, if you're on Pool 1, which is $15 million or less under that next code, you couldn't bring in a sub, even a small business that was larger than 50 million. It had to be less, had to be smaller than 15 million. Or you couldn't bring in a large company completely, not a small business. So that was their requirement at the previous on-ramp for Pool 1. Now for 8As, for this one, there are 3 scenarios that people are discussing. One is that they're not going to allow any partnering. 2 is that they're going to allow partnering, and the partner can be small business, but it will be small business under that pool, like as I mentioned in the previous on-ramps. And 3 is that the subcontractor, the partner, must be 8A as well. So there are 3 scenarios. My own inkling is that they're going to go for 3. In other words, the partners are to be 8As, but that's not something definitive. We have to wait and see how it, the RFP will spell this out. Over.
Okay. Related to that, I'm assuming the same kind of a wait and see may be in order for a question about whether or not you have to give X amount of work share to your partners. That sounds like an RFP type of question.
Well, as far as I know, at least for the previous on-ramps, and the government this was actually raised to the government. The government said we have nothing to do with that. In other words, this is something internal between you as the prime and the subs, your internal agreement. Although the agreement must be submitted to the government, but the extent of the work share and all of that, the government is not going to review that or have any saying on that. So it's something that's between you and your subs.
Okay. This has to do with GDI assisting with the partnering process. If you are 8A not meeting the minimum but looking to partner, will GDI help match companies that may be looking for a teaming partner?
Yes, of course. Especially for those companies who think they don't have the minimums, do come to us. Because once our clients we start working for our clients, they for sure want to maximize their score, and we can introduce you together, and this way, you can get a piece of the pie.
Okay. And this one is just a reiteration, but if you've got one firm counts towards their contracts counts towards the entire team. In other words, if team member doesn't have contracts but the others do, must any one firm have, say you're the applying firm, do you have to have any one of the prime contracts?
No. If you're the prime and say you have number of subs, you can provide the 2 contracts as pool qualifications plus the 5 contracts for primary projects, plus as many contracts needed for those 350 points, if you remember, called secondary projects for agency experience and all of that. So all of that you can bring from your partners. You don't have to have even one contract. The only thing that you must have as a prime are those 2,000 points. I mean, you can't, for example, your sub might have a facility clearance and you don't. You can't use their facility clearance to get a score. So that 2,000 points, which is called system certs and clearances, that needs to come from you and you only. But the rest, all of it can come from your subs.
Okay. And for those contracts,
one point, Charles.
Sure.
They haven't spelled out how they're going to allow JVs or not. If they do, last time when they had JVs, if you JV with a company, then for those system certs and clearances, both companies must have all of those to get the score. In other words, for example, it's not allowed that one company has security clearance and the other one doesn't. Either the JV itself, under its own name, must have a security clearance, facility security clearance, or both members, or if there are 3 members, all 3 members must have facility security clearance to get that score. That's not the case for prime and sub. For prime and sub, only the prime must have it. But for JVs, all must have it. Over.
Gotcha. Okay. Can your primary relevant experience be a state contract?
Of course. As I said, I should have said, when I said commercial, I meant also, all state, public, and commercial. So you can have federal, state, commercial, state, city, municipalities, anything, and commercial. But for the minimum pool requirements, they can only be federal. You can't use state.
Okay. And we have a question about the technical volume being required. Since the scoring is based on the capacity of the company to perform the work, is there still going to be a technical approach volume describing the applicant's proposed methods?
No, nothing. As I showed you, those 6 volumes, only documents, government documents and things like that go into them, forms and documents that show your past performance and past experience. This is the way this, as they say, best-in-class or self-scoring systems work. There are sometimes hybrids that they want written material as well, but at least the ones that GSA is putting out, it's strictly your past experience and performance. In other words, how you did your contracts previously. You don't write anything.
Got you. Okay. And here, this has to do with the 2 different offerings. It says if we go after pool 3 during this effort for 8A subpool, would it still make sense to go after the pool 3 small business on-ramp?
Of course. You can do that. Here, I would say go for both, but here you should, this has priority because you have less competition here. But there's no limitation as to why you shouldn't be able to do it later on when they bid that, I think perhaps in a few months.
Okay. I believe that is the extent as we're going. Yeah, there's been a request for pool and certs come from subs. Yep, you've addressed those. I think that brings us to the end of the.
Okay, very good. So I wanted to thank everyone for participating on this. Please communicate with us. The sooner we can start the proposal preparation, because there is lots of work to do, the better for those who want to our help. Or if you're going to do it yourself, again, I would say please start as soon as you can, because you're going to run into a lot of problems, a lot of ambiguities, and they need to be resolved. And also you need to, even though we are uncertain about who to partner with, I would suggest that you start reaching out to possible partners. You can start with 8As, small 8A companies who have 1 or 2 contracts and will not participate, because for sure if they allow partnering, you want your energy put on this will not go to waste. And then after the 8A companies go after small businesses under those pools and reach out to them, at least be prepared. So once the RFP drops, you've done all the homework, even prepared because obviously the logistics of partnering with companies sometimes takes a long time. So I suggest that everybody starts preparations. Don't wait until 21st to do all of this, especially partnering, and then getting your documentation and everything together to make sure that you don't lose time. I wanted to thank everyone. As I said, the recording for this webinar plus everything I explained on the Q&A will be sent to you. The Q&A will be sent to you in a written format, probably by tomorrow. And we look forward to help you on this RFP, this proposal, as well as we'll be holding webinars on upcoming RFPs and solicitations. And we look forward to seeing you there too. Thank you. Goodbye.